This episode of Warp 5 is brought to you by Audible.com, offering more than 180,000 titles for smartphone, tablet, and desktop. To get a free audiobook of your choice and help Trek FM at the same time, visit audibletrial.com/trekfm. And also by Enterprise in Space, an international program of the non-profit National Space Society. Find out how you can help science and education and become a virtual crew member aboard the NSS Enterprise Orbiter by visiting enterpriseinspace.org. And if you want to join in on the conversation and share your thoughts on this episode or any other, please join the Babel Conference, our listeners group on Facebook. Just type Babel, that's B-A-B-E-L, into the Facebook search field. We look forward to seeing you there.
Hi, I'm Anthony Montgomery, Ensign Travis Mayweather on Star Trek Enterprise, and you're listening to Trek FM.
How we doing, Trip? Ready when you are. Prepare for warp.
Course laid in, sir. Request permission to get underway.
Let's go.
Welcome, Boomers, to another episode of Warp 5, Trek FM's show, podcast, all about Star Trek Enterprise. I'm your host today, Brandon-Shea Mutala, and as you can tell by my stumbling, Floyd's not here. He's got internet issues, and I'm not as well-versed as Captain Floyd when it comes to our intros for our episodes. But fear not, we have got some wonderful Makos? Call you guys Makos. We got some wonderful Makos to help us out, because you're not really our normal Starfleet crew. You're coming in and helping us out, right, on the mission. So we got a couple of Makos to help us for our episode today. It's going to be a little bit of fun, and I will introduce them. Joining us from Earl Grey, Richard Marquez. How you doing, buddy? Welcome back.
I'm good. Thank you for inviting me over. I would have brought a different uniform if you would have told me I would have been a Mako.
Well, yeah, it's a last-minute decision. I'm just winging it here. You know, kind of like every day with Floyd, except there's no Floyd here.
Oh.
So, can I just call you Floyd, and that way I'll feel more comfortable?
Just call me Captain.
Captain. And also joining us for her first ever appearance on Warp 5 is Brandy Jekyll, a co-host of our Live from the Edge podcast, which is all about Star Trek Discovery. How are you doing, Brandy?
I am just peachy keen, but I'm kind of disappointed that you didn't want to call me Floyd. I mean, really.
I was going to call you Floydette.
You know what? I don't need the "et" part on there. I'm good with Floyd.
Okay, Floyd. So we got Captain, and we got Floyd, and we got Brandon. So
yeah,
excellent, right on. Brandy
yes.
Saved my bacon. She pulled my bacon out of the fire tonight here because I was scrambling last minute because of Floyd's internet connectivity issues. So we needed 3 people for this because it just doesn't work with 2. So what we're doing tonight is we're doing Essential Enterprise Season 1. So you've probably heard this type of podcast all over the network. We've done it on Standard Orbit for the original series. They've done them all on To the Journey for Voyager. Have you guys done it on Earl Grey yet? You guys are doing your unsung episodes, but have you guys done Essential?
I don't think we have done an Essential, to be honest. No. Mm-mm.
Yeah, they started it on Deep Space Nine, but then Chris had his issue with his eyes and stuff last year, so it kind of went by the wayside. But we've never done it for Enterprise. So I thought we would do it. And it's going to be a blast. So what we're going to do is we're going to go through episode by episode. Good old Captain Richard is going to give us a quick synopsis of each episode. And then we're all going to determine whether or not we believe it should be essential or toss it out and skip it. Now, this has nothing to do with the quality of the episode, whether it's a good episode or a bad episode. It's just based on whether or not it's essential because of plot or character development. Okay, so everyone understand the rules?
Totally got it.
Okay, Richard gave me the thumbs up, so I guess we're good. And I think we can just jump right into it and just start. So, Richard, you ready to take it away with Broken Bow?
All right. We're going to go with Broken Bow Part 1 and 2. The launch of the NX-01 Enterprise on her maiden voyage as the first exploration starship from Earth. Enterprise's first mission is to return vital information to the Klingons.
Brandy, what do you think?
Well, obviously, this is essential. I mean,
you sure?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, granted, I have seen a few pilot episodes of shows, not Star Trek, in the past that I thought, yeah, we could have actually done without that one. But no, this is absolutely essential. You get to meet all of the main characters. You start to feel that tension that is happening between the humans and the Vulcans. And we see them reacting to Klingons that they've never encountered before, the humans. So it's just the beginning of this beautiful story. And yes, you have to see both episodes.
Definitely have to see both. Oh, and just to the audience who's listening, there's one other thing, is that we're going to go with the majority here. So if 2 people say yes and 1 person says no, then we're going to keep it. And if 2 persons say no and 1 person says yes, then we toss it. That's why we needed 3 people. Sorry, I forgot to say that earlier. So that way if there's a tie, there can't be a tie because there's 3 people, right?
Majority rules.
Majority rules.
Yes, great minds think alike, Richard. Excuse me, Captain Richard.
Oh, yeah. Okay, Floyd.
Thanks.
Richard?
I'm definitely going to go with no on part 1 and yes on part 2.
Okay, half. That's a half a yes.
That counts. No, it definitely, it's definitely a go. It's one of those episodes where you have to start it out. I mean, it's the start of the temporal, what is it? Temporal time war or
Temporal Cold War.
Temporal Cold War. It's been a while. But it starts it out, and just like what Brandy said, or I'm sorry, what Floyd said, we need to know the characters, and we get some kind of an intro with each of them. So it's a pretty good episode. I like this pilot. I really do.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I would agree with you. We're unanimous right off the bat here. Broken Bow is definitely an essential episode because it sets up so much of what they're doing. It sets up their motivations for getting out there and their motivations for Captain Archer being so, gung-ho and exploring and getting out there and, stretching his legs and doing his thing. It talks about his motivations quite a bit. So I really do believe as well that this is definitely an absolutely essential episode to watch if you're a first-time Enterprise watcher.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to our next episode. What do we got next, Floyd? Richard?
Captain.
Captain?
This is going to go so well.
I know, right? Well, the next one's going to be Fight or Flight. The Enterprise stumbles on a ship that's been abandoned, and it's filled with corpses used by an unknown alien that's either an experiment or are they harvesting? Yeah.
I think that they're just cooking.
Yeah.
I thought, when I first saw this, I thought they were harvesting, not experimenting. Because according to Memory Alpha, it says experimenting. And I'm like, no, I think they're harvesting. Whatever they're harvesting. I don't know.
Okay, right on. Richard, we'll go with you first this time. What do you think? Do you think this one's essential?
Except for seeing Hoshi scream and get all, bent out of shape about seeing dead bodies, it's a no-go for me.
It's a no-go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the only thing you think that's salvageable is the Hoshi?
Well, I mean, if they would have came back to it later on down the road and explained what was going on, then yeah, that might make it relevant. But they really didn't, and maybe that was just an episode that they were going to revisit later on in, I don't know, season 5 or 6 or something like that. But obviously, we never got that far. So yeah, yeah.
Right on. Brandy, what do you think?
I actually feel the same way as Captain Richard in this one, because I feel that this fear that Hoshi has is not presented in a very complimentary way to women. They basically portray her as hysterical when she sees these dead bodies, and I do not care for that at all, because regardless of everything else, she is a very learned person, and she is now a Starfleet officer, and I don't think that she would have that overreaction. I don't think that that should have been part of her character at all. So, yeah, to me, there's not really any development of anything in this episode, so I say definitely not essential.
Definitely not. So I think I'm going to have to be the dissenter on this one here. I think it's essential for kind of what you're saying, though, is that we saw Hoshi in the first episode, she's kind of doesn't like space travel, and she is afraid of it, right? And to see this episode where she has to kind of face her fears, she goes on this first mission and she's very frightened by it, but she ends up learning kind of how to, overcome her fears on the mission a little bit. It's kind of a character building episode for Hoshi for me, and that's why I deem it as an essential episode, because of the growth that we see in Hoshi in this episode. So,
if they would have actually, okay, so granted, it's just like the military. If your job is to kill, you really can't. You can only emulate so much in training, and I'm sure it's the same thing with Starfleet when you see a dead body or whatever, whatever you're training for. I'm sure there's endless amount of things that you could possibly see, but like if they would have shown, or at least shown some kind of dialogue of, like, let's say Archer dealing with it for the first time, or Reed or Malcolm or any of them, or even to Paul for the first time. I mean, she's like 100 and some odd years old. I'm sure she's seen plenty of dead bodies, especially in space travel. But if they would have actually said something that they share their own experiences with others, then I think that would make it a go for me. Mm-hmm. But since they never really did that, it kind of falls flat with me. So it's like, okay, yeah, we're throwing her into the fire, and here you go, deal with it. That's sort of the feel I get with this episode when it comes to like facing your fears of seeing a dead body on an alien ship.
Okay.
So,
okay, well, majority rules on that. Fight or flight is a flight.
Quite literally.
You tried to fight, Brandon. I tried
to fight. Unfortunately, it took flight. Okay, Captain Richard, what's our third episode?
A Strange New World. Oh, sorry.
Don't.
Oh, dang it.
I'll start singing with you if you do that.
A whole new world.
Oh, man.
Don't.
Anyway,
I'm
Strange
like
New World.
A shooting star. I've come so far. I can't go back to where I used to be. I'll see what you did.
I don't even want to go back to the rest of the episode. I just want to hear Brandy sing now.
I know. Let's scrap this. Let's go.
Let's do karaoke.
Karaoke, yeah.
I love karaoke.
So after I sidetracked us,
It's your fault.
it is my fault. I take full responsibility for it. So, Strange New World is the episode. Enterprise visits the Earth-like planet to pull Tucker and Mayweather stay the night for a camping trip, and they all fall prey to a conspiracy thanks to a bad storm.
Okay, I'm going to start us off with this one here. I love this episode. I think this episode is a lot of fun, but I think it's got to go. I don't think that there's anything in this episode that we need. I don't think there's anything that advances the plot. We don't get very many episodes with Cutler, and she's here, but I just don't think it's an essential episode, because there's nothing that we learn about them that we need to know for later on. Nothing about any of the characters. So, other than the fact that there's this wonderful kind of camaraderie that's being built around the campfire, and this fun, example of fellowship that's happening on the ship, well, not on the ship, but down below, I think that's it, and I don't think that's enough to make it stay for me. Brandy, what do you think?
I feel basically the same way, but not for exactly the same reasons. The part that bothered me the most about this episode, which it's actually a good point, is that the minute that things start to go nuts, they all suspect T'Pol of causing some problem, of colluding with this unseen enemy, because they don't trust her. And I just found that very, very frustrating. And I felt like everybody was just ganging up on her. Now, I understand they were under the influence of those spores, yada, yada, yada. But we already knew the crew didn't trust T'Pol, and exaggerating it in this way did nothing for me. So I do not think it's essential.
Right. Richard, what do you think?
3 for 3. Yeah, I definitely am in the same boat. Honestly, this is one of those episodes that I actually, on a rewatch, I normally don't skip an episode, but this one I actually do skip.
Really?
So, yeah. I mean, it just it doesn't. I don't know. It's just something about this. I mean, granted, they're all at each other's throats, and that's probably the most interesting part about this episode. But other than that, really, that's all I would watch it for. But I mean, but it's not an episode that I would just normally just go ahead and just rewatch it, and just because of that. So, yeah.
So it's a skip. Brandy, do you like the episode, or is it one that you generally skip when you do rewatches as well?
Oh, well, I'm still working through my rewatch, and I haven't rewatched since it originally aired. So this is one that I would probably skip on my next rewatch, simply because it doesn't further anything for me.
Right, yeah. Yeah, you're in the middle of season 2 or near the end of season 2 right now on your rewatch?
I'm getting close to the end of season 2, and October got really busy, and so I fell behind, but I'm going to get some more Enterprise in this week.
Right on. Okay, yeah, so we're not doing very well. I didn't think we're going to be getting a high percentage here on season 1 of Enterprise for Essential. So, however, I predict high numbers for season 4.
I'm sure there will be.
What do we got next, Richard?
All right, we have Unexpected. Now, I just want to let you guys know that you might already know what my pick is based on how I worded this. But Trip helps an alien ship with their warp core and gets pregnant. That's
Brandy.
it.
I loathe this episode.
Loathe it?
I loathe it because of the way male writers are portraying pregnancy. I'm like, oh, you don't even know the first thing about pregnancy, about what it's really like to be pregnant. Frankly, I don't either, but I know what it's like to be a woman and have all the things that you have to have in order to get pregnant. And it is no freaking picnic. And having him get all emotional and all this crap, I'm like, no, screw you guys. I'm going home.
So, now again, whether the episode's good or not should not have bearing on it.
Well, I still don't feel like we learned anything about Trip, except that he's popular with the females, which we kind of already knew. And so it's just, for me, I don't feel like there's any kind of progression here. I mean, we get some fun time with Dr. Phlox telling Trip what's going on, but it's not enough. It's not enough. I don't feel like there's anything vital in this episode.
Mr. Marquez, I predict a yes.
That's a no.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Keep your shirt on, Floyd. But yeah, I'm in the same. I mean, I've now granted, I sympathize with this episode because I don't know obviously what it means to be pregnant, but I've also been on the receiving end of my significant other getting pregnant. So, but yeah, when it comes to like plots and really, I don't think Trip really learns anything because I mean, obviously we see him later on, you know, talking about Ryza and masseuse having 12 fingers and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I don't think he really learned anything. So, or at least especially from this. So I really don't think that it's essential. No. Mm-mm.
So I really like this episode a lot. I really do. And I personally think it's really funny. Okay, so we were talking about a thread on the Babel conference, and I'm like, you know, I've never been pregnant, but my wife has, and, you know, the things that they're laughing at are the things that me and my wife laughed at when she was pregnant, and she went through all these emotional things, and to me, what's funny about it is the lunacy of the situation, because, you know, a male cannot have a baby, and so to me, it's funny that they're putting this all on him. And I know that's not a popular opinion, and I've read all the comments. Now, that said, there's no way in hell this is an essential episode. So, like, I enjoy the episode, but no, you don't have to watch it. And
But you should for comic value.
comic value.
If you
So,
find that
only
sort of
if you're
thing funny.
If you're only a man, I guess. I don't know. So, but I don't know.
Women that have been pregnant want to laugh at men. There you go.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, now you know. Now you know, don't you, Trip?
It's like one of those what was it, those pain receptors that they put down right next to their stomach and all that kind of
I
stuff.
was just going to say that. There's a video. There's a video of some guys who like put some pain receptors on to simulate the pain that women go through childbirth. I also think that's funny.
There ain't no way in hell that I'm going to do that.
Wrist nipples. That is a nipple.
Wrist nipple.
A third one? Oh, no.
Oh, okay, the wrist nipple is funny.
It is.
The wrist nipple's funny, but it also doesn't make any sense, because
No.
why would his body need to make a nipple there when he's got 2 nipples on his chest, right? It's funny, right? But I don't know. Maybe they just did it because it's a pretty big nipple on his wrist, right?
It's a vampire baby or whatever. You know, they do something on their wrist or something like that. I don't know.
Like, if that bump was on his chest and they showed it, like, it wouldn't make it on TV.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
That's why they did that then.
there you go.
That's why
They
did
wanted
it.
to show they wanted to show the shock value of a nipple on his wrist.
And I was so
Okay,
shocked.
let's move on from the nipples. We're done with the nipples.
Okay. So, next one is Terra Nova, a lost a colony that was devastated by a natural disaster, an asteroid. Enterprise steps in to help the lost colony.
Richard Marquez, what do you think of this episode?
I'm going to go with yes.
Shale.
because-
I call Shale.
You call Shale? It is not a lie. But like, yeah, I think it's an essential episode because it tells about the past of the Federation and how colonies obviously are not always successful, and this one happens to be one of those lost colonies that actually failed because of a natural disaster, and it was a meteor landed next to, close to them, and it caused a radiation storm that basically killed all the adults, and all the children are still living and they survived. So, I really think it's a really essential episode, mainly because of that.
I don't think this episode is as bad as people make it out to be. It reminds me a lot of Nemesis from Voyager, the episode Nemesis, with the way that they talk, the language and the type of dialect that they're using. But I can't say that I would call this essential. I understand what you're saying there, Richard, about showing these failed colonies, and it's an early Federation colony that failed, but I don't know if I would consider that essential for the show but maybe it is, because the show's all about exploring and reaching out there. Right, and it's kind of also showing how dangerous that space can be for the Federation. But I don't think that's enough for me to call this one essential. What do you think, Brandy?
Well, I actually feel that this one is essential, and I'll tell you why. It shows not only the indomitable spirit of humans trying to find a way to help, even if people don't want their help, but finding the answer to the mystery. Because they could have easily gone down there, and when they come across this humanoid race that they don't even realize are actually humans, they could have just gone, oh, well, okay, we'll take your word for it on what happened and bye. No, they investigated. They wanted to find out what had really happened. And T'Pol finds out that the asteroid strike is to blame, and that was the cause of the poison rain, and it wasn't an attack from Earth. And just the fact that even after they've treated this group of people has treated them poorly, and T'Pol says, no, relocating is a bad idea, Archer still comes up with the idea of, look, there are other caverns that aren't poisoned. Go there. Go to the southern atmosphere. You don't have to leave your home. Just go there. And it's that indomitable spirit that is what makes Enterprise great, is what makes that first crew heading out beyond the borders of our solar system to explore those strange new worlds. It's that optimism and that spirit that makes Star Trek what it is.
Okay, I think you convinced me, and I think I'm gonna change my opinion, and I reserve the right as a wrist nipple holder to change my opinion as I see fit. So we'll go with a unanimous vote on Terra Nova, and this is where everybody shuts the podcast off.
I honestly didn't know that people didn't like that episode. I thought it was very interesting, and
I didn't know that either. Richard and I were having a conversation just a few minutes ago here about how we didn't realize the hatred for some of these things until we got on social media, and Terra Nova was one of those ones that I just didn't realize how much people hated until I started interacting with people online. I'm like, I don't know. This is like a typical Star Trek episode. Like everything about it is typical Star Trek.
Yeah, I don't get it. I don't get it.
It's not a great episode by any means. Like I would give it like a 2 out of 5 or something like that. But I mean, maybe 2.5 out of 5. But I mean, most people give it like a -1 out of 5. I think.
Oh, that's harsh.
At least that's my opinion. Okay, what do we got next?
All right, we have.
You realize we only have 2 essential episodes so far?
We do.
We're working on it.
We are working on it. There's 26 episodes in this series anyway, or this season anyway, so we should come up with a few. All right, the next one is the Andorian Incident. Enterprise changes course to visit the monastery on Pajem, but instead gets caught up in the affairs with the Andorians and the Vulcans.
Absolutely see it. This one is an essential episode, hands down, because it sets up so much story for the Andorians later on. It sets up so much of the pieces on the board for the Vulcans, and we learn a lot about them and how deceptive they are in this point of the Federation's timeline. And it really sets you up for how us as viewers need to learn to interact with the Vulcans, and need to learn to understand the Vulcans, because they've got different motivations than Spock when we're in this point of the timeline. So hands down, I think this one is definitely a see it.
I concur. I definitely concur. The captain concurs. Definitely, it sets up so many more stories along down the road. And I love seeing that this is like the first olive branch to finally forming the Federation between all 3 races, and it's thanks to us.
Mm-hmm. So. Brandy, what do you think?
Oh, well, let's make it unanimous. Absolutely essential. Up to this point I was thinking, gosh, I didn't realize the Vulcans were kind of jerks at this point in Star Trek history. And then after this episode, I'm like, oh, man, you are really jerks.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Richard, you got to cover your ears for a second here, okay? You got to cover your ears. So it's interesting watching the episode Lethe from Star Trek Discovery, right? Mm-hmm. That's why I told Richard to cover his ears, because he hasn't seen it yet. Right? But, and seeing that they're continuing on with this thread of the Vulcans, and you know what? I like it.
Yes.
I really like seeing that consistency with the Vulcans, and honestly, it's making me question my own preconceptions of the Vulcans as I've seen them, because so far all we've really had for Vulcans is Spock, Sarek, and Tuvok, right? Yeah, we've had a few here and there. We had Saavik, we had Valeris, we had a little bit here and there, but I mean, look at Valeris even. Mm-hmm. Right? You got Valeris. So, I don't know. I think it's really interesting, and it is challenging my preconceived notions of Vulcans with this episode as well as with Discovery. So I'm liking that they're keeping with that thread. I like it a lot.
I agree completely. And also, it's our first appearance of Shran, and I love me some Jeffrey Combs. So I didn't remember that he showed up that early in the series. And I'm like, oh, and there's so much more Shran to come. Love it. Love it.
Now, right on. Well, our 3 that we've kept have all been unanimous, so that's interesting. The only one is my vote for Fight or Flight. So that's been... Everything's been unanimous so far, which is interesting. Except for my Fight or Flight vote.
Yeah.
Okay, what do we got next, Richard?
Okay, Breaking the Ice.
Breaking Bad.
Enterprise investigates a comet with a Vulcan ship monitoring their moves.
Richard, you're so easily readable. But what about the Snow Vulcan?
The Snow Vulcan is so fun.
I'm sure it is, but it didn't. I mean, it's like them investigate a comet and... Yeah, no.
Okay, I'm going to attempt to change Richard's mind, because I think I know what his answer is, but I'm going to attempt to convince Richard of this one here. I like this episode a lot, and I think it's a very important episode, and I take this episode to heart myself. And the reason why is because of Archer and the growth that he has in this episode at the end, where he does not want to ask the Vulcans for help because he doesn't like the Vulcans so much. And in the end, T'Pol is basically telling him, look, he's offering his help because he's expecting you to not take it. Prove him wrong. And I think that's incredibly important for Archer's growth. And I gotta say, it's a must. Brandy?
I feel the same way because of that particular moment. Because the rest of the episode is kind of throwaway, but that particular turning point, because Archer up to this point is just really angry at the Vulcans for holding humans back. And he still carries that into everything he does. And this shows how he's finally starting to form a real relationship and a trustful relationship with T'Pol. It's a major turning point for his character.
Yeah, I think so. Richard?
All right, you got me. All right, you got me. I'll give you guys that one.
That's a pretty convincing argument, though.
It is a convincing argument, and I like it, yeah. I agree.
It's not the best episode by any means. It's pretty standard Star Trek, but I think it's very important for Archer.
That's the thing about this episode, is just that part of the plot. I mean, the rest of it could have been presented in any number of ways, but the important thing was Archer asking the Vulcans for help.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah.
Take it away, Richard.
All right. Civilization. Enterprise encounters an Earth-like planet and discovers that they're suffering from a disease that is in relationship to technology from their planet. Or from another planet, I guess you should say. But, yeah.
Brandy.
I have a hard time with this one because although I actually ended up liking the episode more than I thought I would, I don't really feel like there's a whole lot of character development here. And so my personal feeling is that it is not essential. I mean, I like them going undercover, and I like Archer forming the relationship with this, what would we call her, an apothecary, and the way in which she just accepts everything that is beyond her realm of possibility in her particular time and level of technology. But I just don't feel like it's anything that is going to influence future events at all.
Yeah, see, this is a very TOS episode. Like, it really, really feels like an original series style story, and I really like it for that. But I got to agree, I don't think there's anything in this episode that really is essential for later on for character development, because there's no real ramifications for it. You know, we don't hear about these aliens again. We don't hear about this character again. And, you know, and the best part of the episode is Archer gets to kiss the girl because he's trying to hide that his communicator thing doesn't work.
Oh, yeah. I would kiss Scott Bakula in a hot minute.
I probably would too.
Ask my
No, I agree. I probably would too. If I could get that close, you know.
Right.
Probably not, but no, yeah.
Someday maybe. Someday maybe he'll come to Salt Lake Comic-Con and I can just plant one on him. No, I'd get thrown out of the con for that.
And I love Salt Lake City Comic-Con. You guys have a great con there.
We have
it's
so
so
much
awesome.
Fun. We have so much fun.
Yeah. I'm definitely gonna have to go with no go like you guys. It tells a great story about pollution and whatnot, but really no, there's no real character development or anything like that. So yeah,
Move along.
Move along. All right, Fortunate Son. Enterprise is ordered to respond to a distress call from a commerce ship, Fortunate. When they are provide assistance, they stumble on a developing situation.
Richard.
I love this episode. It is my favorite episode out of all of Enterprise.
Your favorite episode of all
This
of
is my
Enterprise.
favorite. I don't know why. but I think it mostly to do with that this is a story about commerce. I mean, it's they're talking about how that obviously economy is thriving even in that time frame, and they need dilithium, and they have people running it back and forth from other planets, and I just absolutely love that. And it also the danger that they run into out there in the middle of nowhere. It's just one of my favorites. So for me, it's a go, mainly because of the commerce part of it. That space is dangerous, and that there are going to be more of those NXO ships that are going to be protecting those shipments and whatnot. So, yeah.
Brandy?
I say that this is essential, but not for the same reasons. We have a lot of information coming to us about Mayweather in this particular episode. And he is caught between these two worlds. He is caught between his duty to Starfleet and his duty to the people that he feels are his brothers. He's always going to be that kid who was raised on a cargo ship. Always. And so watching him struggle between those two things was difficult for me, because I just thought, you shouldn't be having to make this choice. And, Archer helps without telling him what to do. And that's an important thing, because at the end of the day, he made the right decision. Mayweather made the right decision, and he was able to balance both aspects of his life because of it. So I feel like it's essential, because we needed to know more about Mayweather, and we just didn't know that much about him, except he was born and raised on one of those ships.
Yeah, and we didn't know what that meant. We're like, what does a boomer mean? We knew what it was, but we didn't know what that meant. Yeah, we get so little with Mayweather that we need this episode so we can get some character development for him. It's really, really unfortunate how little his character was used throughout the whole series.
Unfortunate. He
It's
was
really
not a
unfortunate son.
He was not a fortunate son. It ain't me. It ain't me. Sorry, I'm sorry. That's what starts playing in my head when someone says fortunate son.
Oh, me too. Me too.
Richard and I did an episode, and I played Fortunate Son. I edited it into the episode, and it prevented me from posting it to Facebook because I was using copyrighted music. So don't sing too much, or they might not let us publish this episode.
Well, I wasn't singing, and I only said 4 words. No.
Oh man!
Actually, come on,
repeated.
you gotta sing because we love your voice. Come on,
Wait,
sing it.
what about
No.
A Strange New World?
No. No, I'm not doing any more singing. Y'all have to pay for that now. I've given you a sample.
Transferring the credits now.
Thank you.
I agree. Yeah, so we're unanimous. This is definitely an essential episode.
The trial period has ended.
Richard and I'll have to do it. It ain't me. It ain't me. I know Fortunate Son.
Yeah, you got the sort of growly, screechy thing down.
All right, so the next one is Cold Front. Archer is confronted with a crew member from 900 years into the future who needs his help to find a Suliban operative.
Richard.
I wasn't a complete fan of this episode, but since it deals with the temporal Cold War, I think it's a go.
Think it's essential because of that?
Yeah, mainly because of that, yeah.
That's all you got to say?
Yeah. I don't have anything good for this episode other than that.
I really enjoy this episode a lot. I like Daniels, and I wish you would have seen him a little bit earlier in the series. They could have planted that seed. It would have been really fun, but absolutely essential because of the temporal Cold War plotline. We didn't really get that much of the temporal Cold War, and it was this thread. That was one of the whole premises of the show was this temporal Cold War, and they really didn't address it that much. So whenever we get one, we got to watch it.
Well,
otherwise we don't know why there's space Nazis. Season 4, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Space Nazis.
Space Nazi Ferratu.
Do not go off a course.
Brandy, what do you think of Cold Front?
I have the giggles now. I too actually like Crewman Daniels. He's very engaging, I guess is the word that I would use. And to me, this episode is like, hey guys, you remember that thing we set up in Broken Bow that we've completely forgot about for the last 9 episodes? Here you go!
Whoops, we should go back to that thing.
It's like, oh yeah, there was that thing. So, but it's a temporal Cold War, so you can really just jump around anytime you want. So yeah, it's for me, it is essential because of the Suliban Cabal and Silic and setting all of these other things up that are going to partially pay off in the future.
Partially.
There's some things that I'm just like, why did you even do that when you're not going to pay it off later? Come on, guys. So they just kind of forgot about the temporal Cold War.
Yep.
They could have done so much with that. But, oh well.
Okay, Richard, let's move along.
All right, so Silent Enemy. Enterprise is attacked by an unknown alien ship. Archer orders the crew to install an experimental phase cannon.
2 words. Pineapple cake. See it. We learned so much about Reed this episode. Or do we?
We learn a lot about what Reed doesn't like. Which
That's right.
I love this episode so much, right? I like the A plot line, and I love the B plot line. I just hate that they're together in this episode, because they're so opposite. It's so bizarre. Yeah. But both stories are so good, and I don't know. A lot of people, they don't like it because they're like, oh, they gave the menial task to Hoshi. And again, I see it as Archer gave it to Hoshi because he felt she was the most capable person of getting this information because of her abilities, right? And when he's like, that's an order, like he's joking with her, he's not really serious that he's ordering her to do this, right? That's how I always interpret this episode. But the idea of this unstoppable enemy that's coming after you and won't even talk to you is so fascinating, and again is showing these new explorers just how dangerous space is. And I think that we got to go with it. Plus it shows that Archer needs to put more trust in his crew, right? And he learns that when they're like, look, we can do this. Nope, we're going back. And his crew does it anyways, they disobey orders, and that's that's okay. I'm fine with that because they prove that they're awesome. Why? Because they're on the Enterprise.
But did they actually disobey orders? Did he order them not to work on the phase cannons while they were on their way back to Earth?
Maybe not. Yeah, I guess you're right.
So there wasn't really an order per se, but they were going behind Archer's back big time.
I stand corrected. They were just being sneaky.
Yeah, they were being so sneaky. So sneaky. Because if he found out, he would probably have then ordered them to stop. So there you go.
There you go.
What do you think, Brandy?
I also really enjoy this episode. I didn't think I was going to enjoy the B plot as much as I did. But just seeing Hoshi talking to all these different people from Malcolm's life and how so many of them don't know that much about him. He is just it's not like he's really secretive, but he doesn't make waves about things that aren't really that important.
Very private.
He will stand his ground when it's necessary, but things like food, I'll just eat what you put in front of me. It's food, I need it to continue to do my duties. Duties. So I feel like we do learn a lot about both Hoshi's stubbornness at not giving up and a lot about just the surprise on Malcolm's face when he's presented with this pineapple cake, which is like, how did you know? Because nobody in his life knew this. So, and she of course just makes it seem like, oh no, it's just no big deal. because she's not the kind of person that's like, you don't know what I went through to find this out, so you eat every last bite of that cake, mister. No, it was not going to be anything like that. And the alien ship was also fascinating. Of course it was green, because as we all know, green ships are now evil. So, yeah. Evil, like the fruits of the devil. So... But yeah, it causes progression in that the crew is determined to make these phase cannons work so that they don't have to abandon their mission. Mm-hmm. And boy, they get things working and then not working, but they get them working again later. So it's like, oh, we overloaded everything. That's okay. Aliens are gone. No, I actually do really like this episode, but the two plot lines are completely divergent. It's so weird.
Yeah. Do you think it's essential?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Richard?
Oh, it doesn't matter what my opinion is.
Yes, it does.
It
No,
does.
I'm saying the majority rules.
I still voted for fight or flight, even though you guys both said no.
Yeah,
No,
come
I'm just
on.
kidding. Just like Fight or Flight, I really wish they would have put more story later on down the road, maybe season 2, 3, or 4, one of those three. But, I think it's essential, too. I mean, the ship's a character, too. I mean, we have to have phase cannons. So, So, yeah. Definitely essential.
Okay. What do we got next?
All right. So, we have Dear Doctor. The reason why the Prime Directive really exists. Archer is struggling with a dilemma to give this pre-warp civilization the cure of a disease that's killing their population while they oppress another species.
Now, without getting into the debate of whether or not Archer was right or wrong, Richard, is this essential?
I'm going to go with a go. And, I mean, without really dipping into whether or not he was right or wrong, I really think that this is a prime example of why the Prime Directive exists. I really think I love the struggle that what the doctor's trying to do. He's like, I've already found the cure, and he couldn't even trust the captain until basically he, in a sense, cornered him in the mess hall. So, I really think this is really essential. Not just for season 1, for practically the entire show of all the shows.
Okay. Brandy?
This one is absolutely essential, not only for us finding out more about Dr. Phlox, and as he's writing a letter to another Dr. Exchange friend of his. And so we find out so much about what Phlox thinks about humans, what he thinks about his duties on the Enterprise, etc. And then this moral and ethical dilemma is just, there's no good answer. There's no good answer to this. And it doesn't matter if Archer was wrong or right, but I personally, if I'm going to choose a side, I think Archer did the only thing that he could do. Because evolution is evolution. And if you interfere with the natural evolution of something, then what are you going to cause in the future? Right. So it's a hard episode because you want everybody to come out of it with what they want, and it's just not possible. And this is very similar to what happens in the real world. Sometimes there's no good answer. Sometimes we have to settle for the best we can do. So absolutely essential.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's definitely an essential episode. I mean, it's the groundwork of, hey, we got to be careful with what we do. We can't just go out here and explore and just stomp our feet everywhere and just do what we think is right because we're human, right? It makes them stop and realize, hey, he basically says it. They call it, if only we had some sort of prime directive, he basically says, in order to determine these things. But it's true. They needed it, and this helps develop Archer's opinions towards the Vulcans as well, because this is what the Vulcans have been saying the whole time. And you know what? As humans, I've had people give me advice in my life. They say, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. I go and do it anyways, and it's like, you know what? I had to learn it for myself. And, this was the example of he had to learn it for himself. He had to learn to not interfere. and it's painful, and that's what makes it such a powerful episode. So this is definitely a see it.
Yep, excellent point, Brandon.
Definitely essential.
I agree.
Okay, next.
All right. Sleeping dogs. While exploring a gas...
Skip it.
Okay. All right, so Shadows of Bajam... I think we already know what this one is.
keep going with the sleeping dogs.
While exploring a gas giant, the Enterprise runs into a damaged Klingon vessel. Yeah. That's really pretty much that's what it is.
I am not a fan of the Klingons by the time we get to Enterprise. I'm so tired of them, and we don't learn anything about the Klingons that we don't already know.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree
Brandy?
as well. The only people who learns things about the Klingons that they didn't know are the bridge crew of the Enterprise. So basically, we're watching them walk through this and go, yes, we know! We know! Move on! So yeah, not essential at all. Definitely skip it.
Okay.
I'm sorry to whoever wrote that episode.
That would be... No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to bring it up.
Richard, next.
Shadows of Bajam. In the wake of the last time Enterprise visited Bajam, Archer and T'Pol are on an away mission and are captured. And then, obviously, rescued by the Andorians and humans. So, yeah.
Brandy. Your friend is back.
My friend is back, and you know I love me some Shran. I think that it is essential because, again, we're furthering this relationship that the humans have started with the Andorians. And that, obviously, we've already talked about that, becomes hugely important to the formation of the Federation.
Right.
And the fact that, Shran doesn't like owing people anything, too, that makes it a really interesting situation because he made it seem like, yeah, we're already just here to and so we're going to help you out because it's in our best interest. But I think that Shran has a little crush on Archer. And I think that actually influenced him more than he would ever admit. So yeah, essential. Definitely.
Yeah,
essential.
I think it's essential too. I mean, it continues on with the Andorian plot line that we had just a few episodes ago, and I think you can't miss it. I don't know if I agree that he has a crush on him, but
it's just my little fan
nonetheless.
It's fine.
Nonetheless essential.
I'm totally kidding. I have not written that fan fiction yet.
Uh-huh.
No, I don't do fan fiction. It's fine.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm in the same boat. Essential. Yep, totally.
Are you sure?
Oh, positive. Yeah, definitely needs to be in that rewatch. All right. So the next one is Shuttle Crap 1. Shuttle Pod 1. Trip and Malcolm get stranded in a shuttle pod. Yeah.
I'm going to say I don't think this episode's essential. I'm not a big fan of this episode. I know that it is a fan favorite, but in my opinion, Armageddon Game from Deep Space Nine is way better and did a better job of setting up a bromance. We got what we got with Miles and Julian, and I think that's just what they were trying to do. They're like, we need a bromance, we need a Miles and Julian. Let's put Reed and Trip together. That'll be great. And it wasn't.
No, it was very awkward for most of the episode. I mean, they talk about their what they're gonna do if they were to survive, or what they could have done. But it's like I mean, as the extras say, it was for sure a budget saving episode, and I hate to say it, so is the story. So yeah.
Brandy, what do you think?
Do not care for it at all, and we don't really learn anything new about it. The only redeeming part of it is that they were able to lift that bit of dialogue talking about the 602 Club for the 602 podcast, 602 Club podcast, and that's not enough. It's not essential to anything, and I just grimaced through most of it, so...
Well, Brandy, I'll just let you know that before we started recording, Richard told me that he preferred if you called him Stinky.
Stinker.
I am not calling Captain Richard Stinky.
You know what? Actually, I love that part of the episode. I am so glad you brought that up because what was it?
Just call me Stinky.
I said that to Jennifer. Jennifer's my wife, and I was like, "Come here, Stinky," and I'm like, she would not know what the hell I'm talking about. So I had her watch it, and she was like, "Is that why you called me Stinky?" And I'm like, "No."
Of course not.
Did you just say no?
I did not.
I would never
Then
do
why
that.
did you call her Stinky?
No,
Marriage
I did.
advice
I did.
101. Don't call your wife Stinky.
No, I did. But it was just hilarious because I couldn't stop laughing when he kept on saying Stinky. It was funny. That was probably the only thing I liked about it.
Okay,
Anyway.
let's move on to something more essential.
Okay, there we go. Okay, so the next episode is Fusion. Enterprise runs into a group of Vulcans that are the outcasts because they embrace emotions and all that other non-Vulcan stuff. So,
Brandy.
I personally actually really like this episode because in the beginning when I realized that was Robert Pine under all that Vulcan makeup, I just had a little squee. Because if you don't know who Robert Pine is, he's Chris Pine's dad. And I grew up watching him on Chips. And so I was just like, oh, it's all in the family. It just brought me so much joy. We find out about how mind melds can be very, very dangerous and even abusive in this episode. And we find out things about T'Pol that we did not know or suspect, about how when she was in that compound and she went for a walk, broke curfew, and she was feeling an emotional response from this music, and that has obviously troubled her for a long time. And it's actually also kind of a metaphor about sexual assault. And
It is, yeah.
No means no. No means no. When someone says, no, I don't want to do this anymore, that's it. You're done. But he just kept pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. And yeah. And the way Archer stood up for her, yeah, I really enjoyed that. So I think it is essential in T'Pol's character development and also in Archer's development at forming his relationship with T'Pol.
Yeah. I agree. I think this is absolutely essential because we get information about not just the Vulcans, not just T'Pol, but we get a backstory for her. And like you said, it is an important episode as well because I think it's one of the only times it's a metaphor for sexual assault, but it's one of the only times that Star Trek does a really good job of it. I think.
Agreed.
In addressing the issue, but not only that, but we also learn. I think this is really the first time. You know, we had Amok time with Spock when he smashes that computer console, right? But this is really the first time I think where it shows, hey, Vulcans aren't just humans that don't emote, right? This shows that the emotions that Vulcans have are amplified, and they are much more than what humans express, and their anger is much greater than what humans express when it comes to anger. And I think that it's really shown well in this episode. And I think that's important for understanding Vulcans as well and why they choose to suppress their emotions. Because it's not just suppressing a laugh, it's suppressing all of this strong anger that they've got.
Agree.
I concur.
Richard, do you think it's essential?
I definitely do. Yeah. You guys said it all. Yeah, but I definitely agree that this is for sure essential. Mm-hmm.
Good, right on. Rogue Planet.
Enterprise runs into a rogue planet. No, I'm just kidding. and some hunters, and the prey comes to him in visions as a mysterious woman. Yeah, I don't care for this episode. It's just out there. It's like, okay, yeah, they're hunting for this prey that happens to come to him in visions, and they help them out and to evade them and whatnot. But it really has no other. I mean, I don't see a character development. I mean, other than them trying to save and protect this woman. Really, that's
right.
Or whatever they are. I mean, but regardless, it's a woman that comes to him. So yeah,
Right, but it's really the animal on the planet.
right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think this is essential. I don't think we have any character growth in here. It's an average Star Trek concept, and it's a average Star Trek production, I think. So there's nothing learned in here that helps us later on.
Yeah, I will make it unanimous. There was nothing to write home about in this episode, as they say, and it's basically a lot of everybody telling Archer that he's having hallucinations. And it's like,
You're crazy.
Yeah, and when has he ever been unbalanced like this before? Never. So maybe he's telling the truth. Anyway, yeah, nothing essential here.
Move along.
Acquisition. Ferengi managed to knock out the crew and try to steal everything of value while they're unconscious.
Well, technically, they don't say they're the Ferengis, and we don't know that.
Technically, that's true.
So anyway,
I love this episode. I think this is a fun episode, but it's definitely not essential. I mean,
no.
I'm okay with them coming across these aliens. Yeah, fine. It's not 100% in canon, whatever. I mean, Amy Nelson and I did this a few episodes ago. I don't remember the number. We did talk about this, and it doesn't bother me, but there's nothing in here that we know. The only thing and the only justification, which I don't think is enough, is in Dear Doctor, they mentioned that the Ferengi had visited that planet. Right? Or like they talk about a race that came there, right? So, so that's the only justification. But again, whatever. It's not enough to keep this episode in it for me. So I'm going to have to say it's not essential in any way.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I mean, I love this episode. It's a great episode. It really is. But like when it comes to like any kind of like real plot development or character, no, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not essential. Yeah.
Brandy?
Yeah.
Lloyd?
Floyd? I do like this episode very much, if only for the three Ferengi that are Clint Howard, Ethan Phillips, and Jeffrey Combs, because they're amazing. And it was like a Star Trek reunion. You've got a TOS guy, we got a guy who was on Deep Space Nine and on Enterprise, and we got Neelix from Voyager. I mean, come on, that's just adorable.
And so, this was a money-saving episode because they didn't have to put any makeup on Clint Howard.
What?
I'm going to laugh like him. Yeah, Clint Howard, God bless you. So yeah, I actually enjoy this episode very much, but no, there's nothing essential here.
Okay, let's move on.
All right. So the next one's Oasis. Enterprise finds an abandoned starship, but instead they run into a ship mostly full of holograms. It's like a ghost story.
It is kind of like that.
It is. Yeah, it's definitely a good Halloween episode that you could watch. But to me, it doesn't. It's a no-go. I mean, because really, there's not much more than us finding out. I mean, we really don't know what species they are, and or hear really about them later on down the road, except for it's Odo that's in the episode. But yeah, it's not
Rene
essential.
Auberjonois.
Yeah, I just call him Odo because I know his name is like long as hell.
It's not that long. I've heard worse. Can't think of any right now, but I've heard worse.
I've heard of weird last names. Have you ever heard Marquez? Like, what is that?
That is such a weird name. I mean,
I know,
it's
very weird.
It's
very
up there
weird.
with Jackola. I mean, just no.
If anybody didn't follow you over Halloween as well, I loved it because Brandy had her Twitter name as Brandy Jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, I got to go back in there and switch it now that it's November.
Hey, but it's Christmas almost. Christmas is almost here. Woo!
I'm sorry, we've just lost Richard's signal.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I heard something. I heard he was breaking up a lot. That's a bummer.
So everybody knows we're recording this on November 1st as well. It's not going to be airing until almost Christmas, actually. But
oh, well, okay, then it's almost Christmas. Go crazy, Richard.
Santa! I know Santa! I know him.
We could talk about the scene from Generations. No, let's move on. I also agree that Oasis is not an essential episode. There's nothing we learn. It's an okay episode, but the holograms, no impact on the character development of anybody. Not essential, I don't think, in any way.
Agree.
Agreed?
Unanimous again.
Move along. All right, so the next one is detained. Archer and Mayweather are captured and detained for entering an unauthorized militarized zone. They're detained in a camp full of Suliban.
I think this is absolutely essential, not just because I love the episode. I think this is one of the best episodes of Enterprise, in my opinion. I think this is top 10 for me. But Archer also, again, learns here that, just because these people are of the race that's really bad and trying to hurt you doesn't make everybody like that. And I think even today, for some reason, this seems like this could still be a valid story that everybody should maybe watch. I'm just saying that maybe this should go in schools or something like that. But,
I fully support that Star Trek should be in schools.
Not just Star Trek, this episode.
But you know what I mean. Yeah, I definitely agree with it. Suliban story arc is essential. I mean, obviously, because it also ties in with the temporal Cold War, and it's definitely one of those ones where it should be watched. So, oh boy.
I'm gonna guess we got a unanimous here.
Absolutely. When I rewatched this episode, it had been years and years and years since I'd seen it. And I am a more mature person with more knowledge at this point in my life. And as soon as they entered the internment camp, I'm like, oh, it's the Japanese internment camps of World War II. Oh, man. And I don't think that they could have driven that point home any better than they did in this episode. And for me, it was almost Twilight Zone in its ability to take science fiction and show you your own history and what it was probably really like for the hundreds of thousands of Japanese that were detained for years for no reason other than being suspected of being spies. By the way, no evidence of spying ever found. And when they were let out, they had nothing. They had nothing. They had no home. They had no job. They had nothing. And that is just all over this episode. And they even talk about it. They talk about Japanese internment camps just a little bit. Not to, it's not like they're nailing a shingle on the episode saying, this is what we're doing. It's a very natural progression between Mayweather and Archer. Right. And it obviously didn't bother me to see Dean Stockwell. But yeah, this is this whole thing. Like, what's going on today is this idea. One of the many things going on today is this idea that not all Muslims are terrorists, but all terrorists are Muslim, which is absolutely untrue. And to paint an entire group of people with the same brush, Archer learns so much, and so does Mayweather. They learn so much about the Suliban as a race, and not just as these time-hopping terrorists.
Right. Yeah, excellent, right on.
Voxola. I hope I'm saying that right.
Yeah. We're going to say yeah.
An alien comes on board Enterprise and holds Tucker and Archer hostage. It's that sticky thing from Aliens or whatever.
Yeah,
you
with all the
KY
jelly.
Yeah, with the KY jelly. Yeah, it's what's her name? The one who played Deblana Torres is the
Roxanne
director.
Dawson.
There you go. Roxanne Dawson is the director.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I love this episode. I think it's fantastic. I don't know that I would call it essential, though. I mean, it's really interesting that they're dealing with this life form that's completely alien to anything they've ever had to deal with in the past. Mm-hmm. I think that this is the episode, I think they're called the Cretaceans, and we do get them again later on. So maybe we could call that essential in that this is their first encounter with them, and we see how stubborn they are. Unless this is the second one. I can't remember right now going through because we haven't touched on it. But I don't know. I don't know that I would call this one essential. What do you guys think? I love the episode, though.
I do like the episode because basically T'Pol and Hoshi saved the day. And trying to figure out this creature's motivations rather than continually trying to fight it is, turns out to be the answer. Sometimes things fight because they're afraid, or they feel threatened, or they need help and don't know how to ask for it. And if they can't communicate, that's basically what that creature was doing. It was absorbing people so that it could learn how to communicate and say, I need to go home. Will you please help me? And then, yeah, I mean, I'm sure that that's not actually how it would have put it with the race being the way they are. But it was interesting in that respect. But again, I don't feel that it was essential.
Okay. Richard?
Yeah, I don't think it's essential either. I mean, honestly, this is an episode that I actually skipped. So, yeah.
Is it? Yeah. You don't like the episode even?
It's just, yeah. I really don't like the episode. I mean, not because of Hoshi and T'Pol or anything like that. It's just, it's not a really. To me, it's not a very interesting episode. Yeah, that's all I really can say about it. So, yeah.
Okay. Wow, that's interesting. Yeah. I think you're the only person I've ever met that doesn't like the episode.
Yeah, it's just not. It's not an interesting episode to me. So, yeah.
Okay. Right on. Well, let's move on then.
All right. Fallen hero. An ambassador is charged with crimes on her planet that she's representing. And Enterprise is tasked to take her to a Vulcan ship, but trouble begins.
Dun dun dun.
Brandy.
Oh, this one is really difficult, and I think that it is essential because, again, we are getting character development on T'Pol, and this is basically one of her heroes, and she doesn't understand how this honorable, venerable Vulcan could possibly have committed any crimes. And because, what was her name, Valar? Because she won't talk about it, that's just making things worse. And T'Pol's having a really hard time trusting the vision of her hero and is beginning to, there's that tarnish going on. And she just basically doesn't stop. She keeps picking away at her and picking it away at her until Valar finally is like, okay, fine, here's what's going on. And then at that point, T'Pol's like, we have got to talk to Archer. Mm-hmm. And again, the battle starts all over again with this distrust between Vulcans and humans.
Right. And
when they finally come clean and Archer figures out what to do with their help, and they get their resolution. So it's another bridge-building exercise of trust between humans and Vulcans and between Archer and T'Pol specifically.
So you think it's essential?
I do.
You do? I don't know that I think it's essential. Like, I don't mind the episode. It's not one of my favorites, and I like what you're saying. It is an interesting episode for T'Pol's background, but again, it just boils down to this lack of trust with the Vulcans that we've had kind of over and over. So, like, I like the actress. I don't know her name. I can't remember her name right off the bat. She's been in a lot of Star Trek. She was on Lost. But
Fiona Flanagan.
Yeah,
Ms.
that's
Flanagan,
right. Yeah.
Fiona
but
Flanagan.
I don't know. I just don't think it's a very essential episode to the rest of the series. What do you think, Richard?
I think it is. I think it's very. It's like Floyd was saying. We definitely need that kind of character building, and also, like she said, the bridge to trust humans and Vulcans, and what a great way to actually do that with a situation like this where they're all life or death sort of situation, putting their blind trust into a character or into an ambassador that they have no idea who it is or what she's being charged with, and what a great way to begin to start trusting. So I actually think this is very essential.
Okay. Well, there we go. We'll keep it in then, I guess. I'm okay with that. So.
Yeah.
I was kind of on the fence, but I'll stick with the no. I'll keep my no vote.
Okay. So, next one is Desert Crossing. Archer and Tucker are invited to a desert-like planet by an alien that they helped on a distress call. They both discover that they were invited under false pretense.
Brandy?
Oh, love me some Clancy Brown.
I wish I could marry Clancy Brown.
Right? He's just the best. But a lot of the time when I see him, I'm like, oh, is he playing a bad guy again? And so I'm looking at Zabral through that previous history of is he Starship Troopers Clancy Brown, or is he going to be the Punisher, not the Punisher, Daredevil Season 2 Clancy Brown? Or I don't know what to think. And so it's kind of a mixture of both. He really wasn't a bad person, and he was fighting for what he believed in. And again, this is another situation where there should be a prime directive that doesn't exist yet.
Yeah.
And Archer's like, yeah, we could help you take down all of these people, but it's not our place to do that. So the previous episode, Dear Doctor, prepared him more for this kind of decision, to where it's actually, I wouldn't say easier to make, but he knows what the right choice is. And gosh, Trip is a wimp. Good grief. I didn't know he was such a pansy in the heat. I love you, Trip. I'm sorry. But I'm kind of on the fence as to whether or not it's essential. And I feel like I'm leaning more towards it is, because it's another demonstration of how Archer is learning you can't do everything you want to out there in the depths of space.
Okay. I love Clancy Brown. He's one of my favorites. I've tweeted multiple times to the Star Trek room. I'm like, how do we get Clancy Brown and CCH Pounder on Star Trek?
Ooh.
Like, I want those people on there. I mean, I know we've had Clancy Brown on them, but I mean, as a major role. But and this is probably one of my favorite Enterprise episodes. Like, I think this is probably top 20, maybe top 10 for me. I really like this episode. But I gotta say, I don't think it's essential, because it's not enough of a decision for Archer. It doesn't have as much. It's not as big a decision. Doesn't have enough consequences, I don't think. But and I hate to say that because I love this episode so much, but I don't think it's an essential one, in my opinion.
No, I agree as well. It definitely is not essential. It maybe if he would have blew up a starship by accident, or maybe protecting that one starship or something like that might have been a different story. But like to, answer a distress call and then repair show up and basically coming over to his house for a meal or something like that is not really essential enough to make this one of those essentials. But while you guys were just talking, I was like, the only thing I can remember is the scene in Starship Troopers where he throws that knife into Ace's hand. You can't.
Starship Troopers is so.
Oh,
it's such great satire.
It is.
Gosh.
I know. I remember loving it. I don't think I've seen it since it came out.
But like,
come
you can't push a button if you disable his hand, and I'm like, I just can't stop laughing. I actually have it on my phone, the movie. So I watch it.
We have it on Blu-ray, man. We have the what I call the Verhoeven trilogy of satire between that and RoboCop, and oh my gosh, I've already forgotten the third one. Thank you. Total Recall.
Love it.
Yeah, the trilogy of satire. Brilliant stuff.
There you go.
While we're talking about Clancy Brown, though, I got to say my favorite Clancy Brown is the crab from SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yeah. Mr. Krabby Patty.
Oh, I totally forgot about that.
I was listening to that for so long. My kids had been watching so much SpongeBob, and I'm like, who is that crab? Who's the crab? And then I wouldn't have my iPad with me, so I couldn't check. So honestly, I'd been listening to it for like 2 years when I finally remembered to check it out, and I'm like, what? Clancy Brown.
It's the best. Yeah. And guys, I will choose to make this unanimous that this is not essential because I really was on the fence. So
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
That's fine, yeah. Okay, let's move on. We got 2 left here.
Two left or 2 days?
We got 2 days and 2 nights and 2 episodes left.
All right, so the next one is 2 days and 2 nights. Basically, it's the Enterprise taking shore leave to Risa.
And nothing good ever happens on Risa, guys.
I know,
However,
right?
I think this episode is essential.
Oh?
Yes.
How so?
Because they've been leading up to it, and it's one of the first times we ever got a trickling thread through Star Trek. For like 4 episodes, they're like, we got to get to Risa, and then they're like pulled off somewhere else. So they keep talking about how they got to get to Risa, and then this is the culmination with a not-so-good episode.
But Trip and Malcolm gets robbed. Okay.
They deserved it.
What do you mean they deserved
stupid. They were stupid, and they deserved it.
Yes. It's not a very good episode. There's a lot of really bad things in it. Like, Trip and Malcolm would rather say that they were robbed than say that they were, attracted to these things that turn out to be men.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I don't think it's a good episode, but I gotta put the vote in that I think it's essential because they led up to it so much. And you know what? Here's the thing, though. You know what? I'm gonna have to pull my vote off now that I'm looking at this. Because if I remember correctly, the episode that this started in was because of Vox Sola. And, the only episode we've had in the meantime is Fallen Hero. I don't know if I could even call it essential because of that, because we haven't really voted on the last couple. So, I'm still going to say essential, but you guys can shoot it down if you want. Brandy?
Sure. Make me go next.
Yeah.
I'm going to say not essential. Because despite the whole, yes, we're finally getting to Risa thing, is there really any character development? Does anything happen that has any bearing on future events? No.
All that
Not
confidence that Hoshi was building up, got her something.
Yeah, but yeah, it got her laid is what it did. Oh, oops. And I kept thinking the whole episode, what's this guy really up to? What's he really up to? What's he going to do? Oh, it turns out he really does like her, and this was just a nice experience.
He was actually genuine.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Yeah. So I just, I don't really like the episode, but I don't hate it, and I don't think it's essential.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's essential either. It's a fun episode to watch, but, I mean, yeah, really there's not much to go off of. So, yeah.
Sorry,
Okay,
Brandon.
so 2 for... That's fine. I'm fine with that. Okay, let's finish her off.
All right. The season finale is Shockwave. I don't think we need to say whether or not it's essential or not.
Can we just all say yes now?
Okay, yeah. So the destruction of an alien colony ends the voyage of the NX-01, but that's not how history records it. Yeah, I for sure think it's a go because it ties in with the temporal Cold War, and and then obviously he gets beamed out of there before the Suliban tries to take him as a hostage. So yeah, definitely essential for me.
Yeah, I don't think you can say no to this one here. So, no, this is definitely essential because it leads into the next season. It's Cold War. I think it's definitely essential. Plus, did they mess up? So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's that feeling in your heart like they couldn't have messed up. They didn't mess up because Malcolm is really meticulous about this stuff. It couldn't have happened because of them. It's something else. I don't know what else it is, but it's something else, and I'm going to believe that 100% until I get to see part 2.
The valve's shut, I tell you.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely essential.
Excellent, right on. Well, this has been a lot of fun, and I got to say, I'm actually pretty surprised with the numbers that we got here. So, counting Broken Bow as 2, we said 14 out of 26 episodes were essential for just over half, with 53.85%. So I think that's pretty interesting. I'll go over the episodes again, and you tell me if you think it's a good rewatch or not. These are the episodes that we deemed essential for Season 1. Broken Bow, Terra Nova, The Andorian Incident, Breaking the Ice, Fortunate Son, Cold Front, Silent Enemy, Dear Doctor, Shadows of Pajem, Fusion, Detained, Fallen Hero, and Shockwave Part 1. So that's our essential Enterprise list for Season 1. So what do you guys think of that list?
I think it's perfect.
Same here. I like it.
We trimmed the fat. Nothing.
I gotta say, I think that was a lot higher than I thought it was going to be. I honestly was expecting around 25%.
Oh wow!
So yeah,
that's why it's good to have these discussions.
Brandy, where can people find you? Thank you so much for joining us tonight and saving my butt. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I was so happy to do it. In fact, I was just counting the days until I was finished with Enterprise, and I could say, okay, Brandon, I'm finished with Enterprise. I can do any episode of Warp 5 you want. So, because I've been, wanting to.
Well, I knew you were doing the rewatch, which is also why I reached out to you right away as well. I'm like, Brandy, you're done season 1. You just watched it recently. Yes,
and it's still very much in the forefront of my memories. So it was perfect timing. You can find me always wandering around in the Babel conference, kind of looking lost a little, but actually I'm just lost in thought. I'm not really lost. And I also am on Twitter as Brandywine12, and that's Brandywine, BRANDIWINE 12, number 12. And I do a podcast with my dear husband, David, called the Dark Corner Podcast, which you can find on strangeanddeadly.com or wherever you get your podcasts. And we like to talk about pop culture through a darker lens or filter. And there is a lot of swearing, mostly from me, so that is not for children.
Richard.
Mature content only. Well, you guys can find me also on the Babel Conference. I pop in here and there. I am also on Twitter. My handle is xransom, and you can also hear me on Trek FM's dedicated podcast to the Next Generation on Earl Grey, talking everything Next Generation with Amy and Justin Ozer. So I'm sorry, Amy Nelson and Justin Ozer.
Yeah, don't make them sound married.
I know, right?
Justin's already married, so...
Yeah, that's why it would be awkward.
I know, right?
Excellent, right on. Well, thanks so much for joining me, guys. I really appreciate it. I look forward to tackling Season 2, so I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. However, finding the essential episodes of Season 1 of Enterprise is not the only thing we'll be discussing here on the network. So take a quick listen to this clip and see what else you may have missed elsewhere on Trek FM.
Previously on Trek.fm, Meta Treks.
See, Mike, I think Stamets actually got it wrong. Actually, it's the Metachlorians that allow Catric communication to take place.
No, that's the wrong franchise.
Oh, wrong franchise, sorry. I see what you're describing as an attempt to kind of naturalize this mystical interpretation of Vulcan Catris.
The 602 Club.
Right, because, they're starting off with this auction, and it seems like they're on a mission to figure out who is stealing, and then go in this completely different direction of being concerned about warheads.
Earl Grey.
Yeah, when I was thinking about this, there are a lot of scary scenes or episodes, but for me, it absolutely has to be Phantasms, where Data is dreaming and he sees Troy as a cake and has to take this slice of her.
Oh my! That's scary.
Okay, but
this is
also
your number
within that
one
scene. Hold on.
Okay.
To the journey.
I always want to know, why haven't they done the Guardian of Forever movie in general? For me, that's such a cool go-to concept.
Yeah.
If you're going to make a Star Trek movie, get the Guardian of Forever in there. That would be awesome, and no one has ever thought that was cool enough to do yet. So we're doing it.
Yeah, it never really gets reprised that much, does it? Except obviously in the animated series. We do get the Iconian gateways later, which are a similar sort of concept, aren't they?
But not the same.
Well, they don't talk back to you.
I don't think you can travel through time with those, can you? I think they're more just space.
The final frontier. These are the... Oh, sorry.
And that's what else is happening on Trek.fm.
So check out these shows and join in on the conversation about your favorite corner of the Star Trek universe and beyond. You'll find us wherever you get your podcasts. If you're an Apple user, please be sure to hit the subscribe button in Apple Podcasts on iPhone, iPad, or Apple TV, or in the desktop iTunes app to get the latest episodes as soon as they are published. And please leave us a star rating and written review. If you're not an Apple user, we've got you covered as well. You can find our shows on Google Play Music, Stitcher, TuneIn, Spreaker, SoundCloud, Windows Phone, in most third-party apps, and you can stream and download the MP3 from our website or grab the RSS link as well. We'd love to hear your thoughts on today's show or any of our other shows. And There are many ways for you to do that. The best place to join in the larger conversation is the Babel Conference, our listeners group in Facebook. Just type BABEL into the search field on Facebook and it should come right up. If you'd like to send us an email, you can choose the form on the website at trek.fm/contact. You can choose to send to a show and select Warp 5. That will come right to Floyd and myself. You can also find the network on Twitter at TrekFM and on Facebook at facebook.com/TrekFM. You can find me on Twitter at Brandon-Shea. You can also find me here on the network with The Edge, which is our Star Trek Discovery podcast. And you can find me over on the Fandom Podcast Network with my friends Chris and Tom. And we have a little show called Good Evening, an Alfred Hitchcock podcast, where we talk about all of Alfred Hitchcock's films. And we start way at the beginning with his silent films. Floyd's best place to find him is the Babel Conference, so be sure to check that out. If you'd like to help us keep all of our shows coming, please become a patron of the network on Patreon. That's patreon.com/TrekFM. You can visit there and get all the details. Perks include early access to episodes, exclusive content, producer credits, and more. It's available through our special patrons website called Patron Zone, and it requires a great deal of money to produce, host, and distribute all of these shows each month, and we really appreciate any support you can give us, and we hope so much that you'll join the team. And right now we'd like to thank all of our wonderful associate producers here on the network, without whom we wouldn't be able to host this show for you. So it's really thankful. We're really thankful to them for helping us out, and we're really thankful that they're helping us support the network with their patronage. And Warp 5 has got a whole bunch of wonderful patrons. We've got Norman C. Lau, Floyd Dorsey, Mike Morrison, Tim Cooper, Justin Ozer, Mark Flessa, and our new associate producer, Joe Saltzman. So thanks so much, everybody, for helping us out, and we appreciate it. I guess that's all we got for you today, so tune in next time for another episode of Warp 5. And next time we're actually going to be talking about Precious Cargo and comparing it to The Perfect Mate.